Welcome to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the annals of time, unraveling the complexities of human experience and the grand tapestry of history. Today, we find ourselves at the threshold of a pivotal moment in modern history, one that would shake the foundations of global politics and redefine the balance of power: the Suez Canal crisis. In the scorching deserts of Egypt, where the mighty Nile River once nourished ancient civilizations, a waterway of immense strategic importance was constructed, bridging the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. The Suez Canal, a marvel of engineering, had been in operation since 1869, facilitating trade and commerce between Europe and Asia, while navigating the treacherous waters of international diplomacy. As we delve into the narrative of the Suez Canal crisis, let us begin with the post-World War II landscape, where the world was grappling with the aftermath of devastation and the emergence of new global powers. The Suez Canal, now a vital artery of international trade, had become a focal point of contention between nations. Egypt, having gained independence from British colonial rule in 1922, sought to assert its sovereignty over the canal, while Britain, still reeling from the loss of its empire, clung to its interests in the region. In the early 1950s, a new player emerged on the Egyptian political scene: Gamal Abdel Nasser, a charismatic and ambitious leader who would soon become the president of Egypt. Nasser's vision for his country was one of modernization, industrialization, and Arab nationalism, with the Suez Canal at the heart of his strategy. As he navigated the complex web of international relations, Nasser found himself at odds with the British government, which still maintained control over the Suez Canal Company. The British, led by Prime Minister Anthony Eden, were determined to maintain their influence in the region, while the Americans, under President Dwight D. Eisenhower, were increasingly wary of British colonial ambitions. The Soviet Union, meanwhile, saw an opportunity to expand its influence in the Middle East and began to court Nasser's government with promises of economic aid and military support. As tensions simmered, the Egyptian government, on July 26, 1956, announced its decision to nationalize the Suez Canal Company, sparking a chain reaction of events that would draw in multiple nations and lead to one of the most significant crises of the 20th century. In the months leading up to this pivotal moment, Nasser had been engaged in a delicate dance with the British and French governments, who were growing increasingly frustrated with his nationalist agenda. The Americans, too, were watching the situation unfold with great interest, as they sought to balance their own strategic interests in the region with their commitment to preventing the spread of Soviet influence. As the summer of 1956 wore on, the diplomatic maneuverings reached a fever pitch, with secret meetings, coded messages, and covert operations all playing a part in the unfolding drama. The British and French, determined to maintain their control over the Suez Canal, began to explore military options, while Nasser, buoyed by his growing popularity at home and abroad, remained resolute in his determination to assert Egyptian sovereignty. As the summer of 1956 wore on, the diplomatic maneuverings reached a fever pitch, with secret meetings, coded messages, and covert operations all playing a part in the unfolding drama. On October 29, 1956, Israeli forces launched a surprise attack on Egyptian positions in the Sinai Peninsula, marking the beginning of the Suez War. The British and French, who had been secretly colluding with the Israelis, soon followed suit, launching their own military campaign against Egypt on October 31, 1956. The bombing of Egyptian airfields and the seizure of key cities, including Port Said, were among the initial objectives of the Anglo-French operation. The international community was caught off guard by the sudden outbreak of hostilities, and a chorus of condemnation erupted from the United Nations, with the Soviet Union, in particular, denouncing the aggression. As the fighting raged on, Nasser's government responded by sinking ships in the Suez Canal, effectively blocking the waterway and crippling international trade. The economic implications were immediate, with oil prices skyrocketing and global markets beginning to destabilize. On November 5, 1956, a contingent of British and French paratroopers landed at Port Said with the aim of securing the city and restoring control over the Suez Canal. However, the operation was met with fierce resistance from Egyptian forces, who had been bolstered by Soviet arms and military advisors. As the battle for Port Said intensified, The United States, which had grown increasingly uneasy about the situation, began to exert pressure on its allies to cease hostilities. In a dramatic turn of events, President Dwight D. Eisenhower, who had been monitoring the situation closely, addressed the nation on November 1, 1956, stating that, "We do not accept the use of force as a means of settling international differences." This public rebuke marked a significant shift in American policy. As the United States began to distance itself from its British and French allies, the Soviet Union, sensing an opportunity to exploit the divisions within the Western camp, issued a thinly veiled threat to launch nuclear missiles against London and Paris if the aggression continued. As the crisis deepened, the United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting on November 2, 1956, at which the Soviet delegate Arkady Sobolev warned that the Soviet Union will not stand idly by while the aggressors continue their bloody work. The British and French delegations, meanwhile, found themselves increasingly isolated as the international community rallied behind the Egyptian government. On November 6, 1956, a ceasefire was finally brokered, with the United Nations agreeing to dispatch a peacekeeping force to the region to oversee the withdrawal of Israeli, British, and French troops. As the ceasefire took hold, the United Nations Emergency Force, led by Canadian General E.L.M. Burns, began to deploy along the Suez Canal, marking a significant milestone in the crisis. The force's presence helped to stabilize the region, and on December 22, 1956, the last of the British and French troops withdrew from Egyptian territory. The Israeli forces, however, remained in the Sinai Peninsula until March 1957, when they finally pulled back behind the armistice lines. The aftermath of the Suez Canal crisis saw a significant shift in the global balance of power, as the United States emerged as the dominant world leader, while Britain and France struggled to come to terms with their diminished influence. The crisis also marked a turning point in the Cold War, as the Soviet Union's willingness to intervene on behalf of Egypt had demonstrated its growing commitment to supporting anti-colonial and nationalist movements around the world. In the years that followed, the Suez Canal crisis would be remembered as a pivotal moment in modern history, one that had far-reaching consequences for international relations, global governance, and the fate of empires. As historian Anthony Eden would later reflect, the Suez Canal crisis was a watershed event, marking the end of an era of colonialism and the beginning of a new era of national sovereignty and self-determination. Today, the Suez Canal crisis is recalled as a cautionary tale about the dangers of military intervention and the importance of diplomacy in resolving international conflicts. The crisis also serves as a reminder of the enduring significance of the Suez Canal itself, which remains one of the world's most critical waterways, with over 17,000 vessels passing through it every year. The crisis may be over, but its legacy lives on, serving as a powerful reminder of the importance of diplomacy, cooperation, and restraint in a rapidly changing world. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.